The sound of tearing paper was sharp enough to make my chest tighten. I stepped out onto the porch just in time to see her stubby fingers clawing at the bright orange sticker glued to my front window, the sticker that had been ordered by a county judge after months of legal wrangling. HOA Karen, in all her bloated arrogance, stood there like she owned the house, peeling the warning off with a smirk plastered across her face. "You're welcome," she called over her shoulder with mock sweetness, her tone dripping with superiority. These ugly stickers were ruining the look of our neighborhood. I'm restoring order. For a second, I thought I must have misheard her. My wife gasped behind me, her voice trembling. "She's touching a court order." That sticker wasn't a decoration. It wasn't something I'd chosen. It was the county's official notice that my property was in the middle of a legal preservation dispute. The order made it clear: no HOA interference, no alteration, no fines, no trespassing. That bright orange slip of laminated paper was my shield, the proof that the judge had sided with me against her endless harassment. And here she was, ripping it down like it was just another flyer for a lost dog. I walked toward her slowly, my boots crunching against the gravel, every step boiling with rage I had spent months trying to control. "Karen," I said, my voice low enough that she had to stop clawing to hear me. "Do you have any idea what you just did?" She turned, her face red and glistening with sweat, puffing herself up as if she were a general commanding troops. "I know exactly what I did. I saved this street from your circus. These stickers make us look like trash. You think you're special because a court gave you some paperwork? Please. I am the HOA. I don't need permission." Neighbors had started gathering, drawn by the sound of her shrieking and my silence. Phones rose, cameras recording. They knew this was different. For years they'd watched Karen bully people about the color of their mailboxes, the size of their hedges, even the flags they flew. But this was bigger. This was her physically defying the law, her arrogance finally visible in a way no one could deny. I pulled out my phone, pressed play, and let the recording I'd saved echo across the yard. It was the judge's voice from the last hearing, clear and undeniable. "The Homeowners Association has no authority to tamper with or remove the preservation stickers. Any interference will result in contempt of court." Karen froze, her hands still clutching the half-ripped sticker, the words slamming into her like a hammer. For the first time, her smirk faltered. She tried to recover, blustering, her voice high-pitched and cracking. "That doesn't apply to me. I'm acting in the best interest of the community." But the crowd had heard it. The truth rang louder than her shrieks. A whisper ran through the neighbors. "She's breaking the law. She's ignoring a judge." The enforcers she usually relied on weren't here tonight, and for the first time, she stood alone, the weight of her self-importance suddenly looking fragile. That's when the twist came. From behind the crowd, a figure stepped forward: Councilman Reyes, the county official who had personally overseen the preservation ruling. He had come to deliver additional paperwork and happened to arrive just in time to witness Karen's arrogance firsthand. His voice cut through the chaos, deep and commanding. "Stop right there." Karen whipped around, her face draining of color as she recognized him. "You're in violation of a direct court order," Reyes declared, pointing at the torn sticker still clutched in her hand. "You just committed contempt, in front of witnesses and under recording." Karen stammered, words tumbling out like broken glass. I was protecting the neighborhood. He's abusing the system. Those stickers ruin property values." Reyes didn't flinch. "What you've ruined is your credibility, and now you've invited charges that go far beyond HOA authority." The crowd erupted, voices louder now, a storm of years of resentment finally spilling free. She fined me for a flower pot. She trespassed in my yard. She made my wife cry over holiday lights. Every grievance, every humiliation Karen had inflicted was thrown at her like stones. She stood there, shrinking under the weight of her neighbor's fury, her arrogance cracking, the power she clung to crumbling with every word. I looked her in the eye, my voice steady, my anger carved into steel. "You thought this was about aesthetics. You thought you could erase the law with your fingernails. But those stickers weren't ugly. They were justice. And you just tore justice in half." She opened her mouth, but before she could spit another excuse, Reyes raised his phone. "I'm calling the sheriff. This ends tonight." Karen's face twisted, red and swollen with rage, but she knew she was cornered. She sputtered, her voice desperate. You can't do this to me. I am the HOA. The words rang hollow now, pathetic, stripped of power. And as the sirens began to wail in the distance, the crowd didn't scatter the way they used to. They stayed. They stood with me, shoulder to shoulder, phones still recording, voices rising in one final act of defiance. Karen, who had once towered over us with threats and fines, looked small, pitiful, her legacy unraveling in front of the very people she had tried to control. The sheriff's cruiser pulled up minutes later, tires crunching against the curb, its lights slicing through the night sky. The neighbors didn't scatter. For once, no one retreated into their homes. No one pulled curtains shut in fear of retaliation. They stood firm, lining the sidewalks, recording every moment as if the very act of watching was an oath that they would never again allow one woman to hold power over them. Karen's arms flailed wildly when the deputies stepped out, her bloated frame quivering with fury and panic. "You don't understand," she screeched, pointing at me as though I were the criminal. "He's the problem. He's bringing down property values with those hideous stickers. I was fixing it." Her voice cracked, desperate now, losing the shrill dominance it once carried. The deputies didn't so much as glance at me. Their eyes locked on the shredded sticker still clutched in her damp fist, the half-laminated edge glowing under the porch light like the evidence it was. Councilman Reyes handed them his own written notes, along with the ruling from the judge. "She ripped down a court order in defiance of preservation law," he said firmly. "And she did it in front of witnesses and recordings." The deputies nodded. One of them unclipped the cuffs from his belt. Karen backed away, her hands shaking. "You can't arrest me. I'm the HOA president," she wailed, her voice shrieking higher with every word. The deputy's tone was calm but unyielding. "Ma'am, right now you're not the president of anything. You're a suspect under arrest for contempt of court, destruction of government property, and trespassing." The click of the cuffs snapping around her wrists was followed by an eruption of cheers from the crowd. Some clapped, some shouted. Others just let out long sighs of relief that had been stuck in their throats for years. Karen kicked and screamed, her face red as she tried to twist free. "You'll regret this. All of you. This neighborhood belongs to me," she shrieked as they guided her toward the cruiser. But her threats rang hollow. The power that once hung over the street like a storm cloud had vanished the moment the cuffs closed. My wife took my hand, squeezing it so tightly it almost hurt. Her eyes glistened, not with fear, but with release. My son, standing beside her, whispered, "She can't boss us anymore?" I knelt, brushing his hair back, and smiled. Not anymore. Not ever again. The fallout spread quickly. Within days, Karen's mugshot was plastered across the evening news, her arrogant smirk from HOA meetings replaced with a face twisted by rage and disbelief. Reporters camped outside the courthouse, hungry for every detail of the scandal. It wasn't just about my stickers anymore. Investigations revealed how Karen had drained HOA funds, levied false fines, and fabricated rules that never legally existed. Her power was a sandcastle built on lies, and now every wave of evidence washed another piece of it away. At the emergency town meeting that followed, for the first time in years, people spoke freely. They shared stories of Karen's bullying, the veteran she fined for flying his flag, the widow she threatened with foreclosure over a garden statue, the young couple she harassed for parking their baby stroller in the hallway. Each story was met with gasps, then outrage, then resolve. The community wasn't just angry they were awake. When the judge handed down her sentence weeks later, the courtroom was packed with neighbors. Karen stood hunched, her once towering arrogance crumbled into a bitter slump. The judge's words echoed through the chamber. "You abused your position, defied the law, and attempted to strip a citizen of their rights. This community is not your kingdom. You are not above the law." He sentenced her to 3 years in prison and barred her permanently from holding any HOA position again. The gavel struck, and with it, the last shred of her reign ended. Walking out of that courthouse, I saw something I hadn't seen in years: neighbors smiling at one another, shaking hands, making plans. The new HOA board formed not with threats, but with transparency, led by people who had been silent victims now ready to rebuild. The orange stickers went back up, this time untouched, standing as symbols not of ugliness but of justice. One evening, As the sun dipped low and painted the houses gold, my wife and I sat on the porch watching children chalk rainbows and hopscotch across the sidewalks Karen once patrolled like a warden. My son laughed freely, his voice joining the chorus of kids who no longer looked over their shoulders. My wife leaned into me, her voice soft. You didn't just protect our home. You gave them all their home back. I shook my head. We did it together. She tried to divide us, but in the end, she gave us the one thing she never wanted us to have: unity. And that's what I'll leave with you. When power is abused, when arrogance tramples dignity, silence is the soil that lets it grow. But when people speak up, when they refuse to bow, even the loudest tyrant falls. Karen thought she could tear down justice with her hands, but what she really tore down was herself. Now I ask you, the one hearing this story, was I right to stand firm, to let her trip over her own arrogance until the law caught her? Or should I have stayed quiet, let the storm pass, and kept my head down? Tell me, is justice served, or was it too much?